Jacob's here. I can never say your last name right, so I'm just going to let you say it.
Yeah, it's okay. It's Jacob Suko. You can say Sucko. You can call me Jacob. You can call me Jake. Whatever it is, I really don't have
We've
much.
only been friends for a year, and I still haven't learned how to pronounce your name, which is like slightly embarrassing.
We're just on that good of a level to where the last name's never necessary. Don't worry about it.
Like, hey, you're like Cher. It's Jacob.
Yeah. I'm like Cher. I'll take that.
And if you guys haven't met Jacob yet, he's amazing. High energy. We have amazing conversations every time. And I have marker on my arm already from this morning. That's how you know it's been a good morning. So yeah, and Jacob has this awesome membership. He is the founder of Email Empire, and he teaches people how to like do amazing things with their email list. With you break it down so it's so easy. Can you like talk more about that? Yeah.
Definitely. So the easiest way to go about it is to kind of like talk about where the idea comes from in the first place, right? So email marketing, we think historically, it's always been a great way to drive revenue. It's a great way to build an audience, and it's a great way to control the channel that you're talking to your customers or potential prospects on, right? On social, it's always tough. This is why it's always been a push, because you're subject to an algorithm, you're subject to changes, you don't have control, right? So everybody says you always need an email list, and there's lots of great products out there to learn how to build one, lots of great products out there to learn how to sell to one. But I've learned that, to be honest, most of the stuff that people are shilling is like 3 to 4 years behind. Now, where we stand today is a hell of a lot different than the days of Facebook funnels of old, right? Where you can just run ads to a lander on a free lead magnet, push to an upsell, and get it moving down the line. And all of a sudden, you've sold $2,500 in products to somebody who's been on your list for a week. It doesn't work that way anymore. People are all over the place. There's 30 to 40 different people, no matter what the niche or offer that you're selling is. And we've got a lot of choices. And so what happens is that as buyers are more sophisticated online, it takes more of a relationship for them to be able to purchase from you. And to be honest, I don't believe that anybody should be shoehorned into a straight line funnel or an offer ladder or whatever it is you want to call it, if you will. So instead, we find a way to build out an ecosystem that's really just based on grabbing somebody in, telling them what it is that you can teach them or what they can learn from you, show them all the different ways and connect them to all the different great influences that you have, and start a conversation. Right? Because the biggest benefit to email is that that's what it is. It's a one-to-one conversation with someone in their inbox every single time you send one. And there is no more platform that's that intimate, right? Yeah. So I believe it takes a hell of a lot of trust for that to happen. So what we do instead is show folks how to build much more organic relationship over time. Because what I noticed was that when we changed up the way that we looked at things from a strategy perspective when I was working with my clients, was that we would see the same results on a 10,000 person list with one that was half to a quarter of the size if it was focused much more on an engaged audience that's replying and interacting with content and constantly asking for feedback and mailing more often. So when I noticed that, there's a great avenue, a vehicle for people who are doing their own thing, solopreneurs, freelancers, creators who don't have the budget, the time, or the patience to learn how to run paid acquisition funnels all day long. So that's what we do.
Totally. Well, and I think, your approach to this, your approach to everything is always, I hate to use the word disruptive because I think it's overused and it's such a buzz jargony word, but it is. You come from this like super fresh perspective, and you have a new way of looking at things and breaking it down. That's like, it seems so obvious. Whenever we have a conversation, it's like, oh, why didn't I think of that? Because it feels so obvious, but it's not obvious to us until Jacob shows up and is like, there's another way to look at this. And I don't want to even your style of running events is like how to hack LinkedIn events to build your list, which is so cool. So we were talking offline before this, like, talk to me a little bit more about how that group's running. Like
yeah, for sure. It's a ton of fun. So the whole process is relatively new, right? We went from idea to one masterclass event to really good feedback and running 3 of them broken down to then launching the course in about like 30 days. I don't know, I'm crazy. You talk about high energy. I respond to stress with like action and overaction, which is not a good or healthy way to do things at all. But it comes with its own benefits, I guess, too. That's what I'm taking out of it. And so the whole process was a ton of fun because everything in the course got built out from the feedback from the event's live time. I picked 1 or 2 things, which first and foremost on that end was 6 unconventional strategies you can use to build a highly profitable, ultra engaged list of diehard fans that can't wait to buy from you, right? And inside of that, there's about 50 different topics we can teach on. And so what I wanted to do was to use the events as a way to learn what was going to be most pertinent and most impactful for people. And so as the events went on, actually the content for the course itself changed, right? In the way that I thought it needed to be structured. And even after we're just finishing up the first live cohort now, I mean, the results have been awesome. You know, we had people who had 150 subscribers in their first 2 weeks, starting from zero. A couple of folks who they're freelancers. They closed in, $1,200, $2,000 client deals just from starting to email their list of people they hadn't talked to in a while. Some really cool deals and fun stuff coming out. Somebody got a hook up with Pinterest just from all that kind of stuff. And all of that just comes from what's possible when you talk to your audience on a more regular basis, And so the results have been awesome. It's been a ton of fun. And because of that, selfishly, I don't want it to end. The whole purpose initially was always to push out an evergreen version so that people can use and learn from this toolbox essentially that we put together long term as you grow. But there's a community aspect to it too. And so I'm not going to give all of it away too much right now, but we're going to be looking into that and launching out some things to where I want it to be as approachable as possible for people to be able to use what I'm teaching, right? One of the big call outs, you said disruptive. Contrarian's probably the better way to describe it. I'm a cranky old cynic, even though I'm only 27 yet. But
I forget how you that's awesome. You have done so many. Let's talk about the edible, the ice cream. Can we talk about the ice cream?
Sure. Yeah, the edible cookie dough. Yeah, it's all over the place. Yeah, I get to tell this story a couple of times a month, and that's where my whole journey starts. I was actually helping a close buddy of mine kick off an edible cookie dough company, which sounds cheesy. Yeah, no, you're good. It sounds cheesy right now, but back in 2014, 2015, we were getting started as a brand new category. I thought I wanted to be a chiropractor, did everything lined up, great school, great internship, the Seahawks lined up, all kinds of cool stuff. Went and worked for 8 months and found out I hated it. And so I bailed on that.
I did not know that.
Oh, yeah. It's my canned intro for sales calls and all that other good fun stuff. So you might have missed it. But yeah, so instead, I had a buddy of mine that helped out a couple of times with events and whatnot, reach out and say, hey, listen, we're doing good. And I've got the operations side of the things locked down, but I suck at sales and marketing. You're good at talking to people. Do you want to just take this over? And I didn't have anything else to say yes to. So that's what I did. And it was a ton of fun. We went from doing 25K in farmers markets and state of Michigan events to doing a couple million a year, private label for some of the biggest grocers in the country, which is fun, national distribution, a pretty good little lump in e-com, which I wish was more profitable, doing food service and launching a couple of new verticals. And it's all a ton of fun. But then in 2018, my daughter was born, and then everything in big food is East Coast or West Coast. We're right in the center of the country in Michigan. So traveling 3-4 times a month with a newborn was just way too much. And so that's when I walked away and did my 8-9 month stint in leading corporate sales, and where I developed my hatred for a job, because I had a job before that, but it wasn't really a job. And that's kind of pushed to everything that we're at today. But that's where all that gets started from.
Well, I think there's a lot to unpack there with a job versus a job. Yeah. and you run your business like a job. You run it that way, but you're not beholden to anyone else. And I think that's what's super cool, because you took off for 6 months. Is that how long your cross country journey was? It was 6 months.
We did 4.5 months. Cross country's a bit ambitious. We did the East Coast. So we started in Michigan, and then we took off in an RV last, I don't even know, just before last summer. Went through the fall and a little bit into November-ish. We went from here up to the top of the East Coast, up to Maine and Arcadia, and then scooted down the East Coast and did a lot of fun trips there. Found out it was hella hard to run a business from the back of an RV without internet in a lot of places. And then also too, it's just a lot for the little one. She had to stop and meet some new friends, and then all of a sudden we got to leave continuously. It's just a lot. Great opportunity, great adventure. We broke even on the RV in general, so I was cool with it. There's no loss in the slightest. And we were just ready to come back. But it's been fun, because then being back here is what really made me realize what I wanted to do long term. And a lot of that's putting together a community that shows people everything that is possible right? When you lean into the right things and are able to pull the right triggers with your business, whether that's something digital or info product based, whether that's services, whether it's coaching, or whether it's even like e-com and selling an actual product or some sort of piece of software, right? But being lean, being ultra bootstrapped and not having access to resources has made me learn a lot of things in every business that
Right.
I've been in. And being able to share what's possible doing things organically has been huge, you know? And so that's what I'm trying to do, is build up a community centered around that, using the easiest channel to do so with the highest margins without the least amount of spend, right? Which is all email.
100% it's email. And I think, yeah, I think you're spot on there. Like when you have no one to show you the ropes and you figure out all these shortcuts to be more efficient, there's no rule for the way it has to be done if you don't know what the rules are.
Right.
And I think that's so awesome. But yeah, so can we talk a little bit about community without digging too deep into what you're building?
Yeah,
And just like
100%.
the idea behind community. And that's how we met. We met in a mastermind that we are still in, doing different things in our businesses. And I think your business looks quite a bit different than it did a year ago. And I know mine certainly does.
Yeah.
But why a community? Why do you want to create that? I mean, I'm creating a community too. So it's really interesting to hear everyone's perspectives on like what
Yeah.
the value is and why and where and how and all the things.
Cool. So this will probably turn into a very short monologue, and I'll keep it intentionally so. But the biggest thing for me is that I like to take a villain, pick a bone with it, and use that to really portray a good, strong point, right? And the way that I build my business is no different. So I've paid, you mentioned masterminds, courses, I've paid it ungodly amount of money, right? Like $20,000, $30,000 in the past year and a half into different masterminds, groups, coaching, all kinds of things. And while the results from all of those have been great, and I'd recommend almost every one of them to anyone else coming up, I learned that there's a really big gap there, right? And that some of the best content, some of the best access is very gated with a high price point. And when it comes to something like email, when it comes to something like starting from scratch, when it comes to something like building up a business off of organic reach, there's a gap in product market fit there, right? Because those folks don't have a ton of budget. We're talking about 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 sometimes % of what these folks are bringing in a given month, right? And that's okay. I've got no shame. I'm a capitalist all day long, right? But I wanted to create something that fit that gap where it's affordable, it's very impactful, and essentially with all the products that I'm building out, it's 100x value point, right? So I want to be able to justify 100 times the value of this investment, zero question. And so that's where I walk everything back from there. And so whether it be courses, whether it be email marketing, like there's a lot of great people doing really cool things out there that, like I said, I think are a little bit dated, a little bit expensive. But I was selfishly, the idea comes up like 6 months ago, and I loved email, loved writing copy for my clients, took over more of a management perspective and actually managing the sending and implementing the automations and all that good jazz, just because I didn't have the patience for people to implement stuff on their own. And then where it goes from there is that I started looking into courses about doing that for other people, for other solo creators. And what I noticed was that when you look up courses for ActiveCampaign, there's like 4 or 5 of them. They're not too bad. They're like mid-ticket, like $1,500, $2,000, whatever. And then I wanted to dig a little bit more into the budget community and what products are marketed at a more budget-focused audience, ConvertKit being one of them. And I noticed that the only major course for learning ConvertKit, great content, beast of a course, like 100+ hours of stuff, but it's like $2,500. And for a product that's advertised as getting a lot of mileage out of it for free, or about $30 a month, that didn't line up, at least in the way that I viewed it from what, the way that they're marketing towards
Yeah,
their
for sure.
So list building on a budget, right, is what's born out of that. And it's how do I find a way to offer a very comprehensive but entry-level foundation that's not going to break the bank, that people can use to start building out something of their own, right? Because like, I don't want somebody to come in and build an exact copy of what I have. Your business and audience is a hell of a lot different than mine is. And this should be flexible. So it's teaching more so a way of thinking and giving a toolbox, right? I'll give you all the automations.
Are you tech
Mhm.
agnostic, or is this ConvertKit specific that you're focusing
Yeah, for sure. So primarily ConvertKit and ActiveCampaign.
on?
Those are the two that all the automations and recipes are clicked in for. So like if you use either of those two tools, you come into the course, you've got one-click automations for everything that I teach. It'll put them right into your system from there. ActiveCampaign, just because if you need the CRM portion of it, that's what I recommend it for. But if you're doing anything less than that, ConvertKit all day long, because you want it to be easy to get in and out of there and send an email. And I want it to, like, the biggest challenge when it comes to emailing is you have to do it hella often, and
Mhm.
it needs to be done in a way that your audience enjoys. And if you don't enjoy the process of sending an email to your audience, it's going to be so much more difficult to be consistent, and it's going to show in the way that you push out content, right? It's going to be less often, it's going to be a lower quality, and there's going to be less investment into it because you're overwhelmed by all the shit that's going on in the software that you're using. So that's where ConvertKit comes in, is it's about as bare bones simple as you can get. There's people who run multi-million-dollar businesses out of it, right? It can be as simple or as complicated as you want. But selfishly, I know my audience, and I know there's a lot of people out there that use other tools too. So all of it's applicable, right? It's tool agnostic. We've had people who use Flowdesk, people who use MailChimp come in. It's so much easier to follow with those two. I'll live and die by those two recommendations for just about anybody. But you can learn and apply it to anything you're using too.
That's awesome. Well, I'm bummed. Like when you were doing the beta, I had like a pile of things going on this high. And I really, because I was launching my own stuff, which in retrospect, maybe I should have hopped in. So I couldn't do the beta. And everyone who has been in it, Nicole, who's come on here a couple times with me to talk, raves about it. So it's such a cool program. And, I think there's something really interesting that you said earlier, like using live events to build your offer publicly. And that's not something that anyone does. And I think, that's probably something that you teach inside too. But I think that's such a cool component that is something you've always talked about, is building in public, and building the public eye and doing things publicly. So I think that, there's so much to learn from you. Like the email piece is huge, of course. And that's really where you lasered into. But do you ever think about teaching the live event style, or is that a lesson?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. So that's probably going to be the next piece of content that gets added additionally. So like where the course will go for evergreen for the future, there'll be fun community attached to it. But then on the back end, it's lifetime access, right? So I want that thing to live and breathe and become a really strong reference point for everyone who's going to use it, because you won't need everything at the same time. I'm not ignorant enough to think that you're going to speed through everything and in 3 weeks have every single thing set up, right? It's going to go in phases. And as you have different ideas, there's things that are going to be useful for you. So one really big thing when it comes to launching a new product or a course or a service is events. And one of the reasons that events are really powerful in doing that is it's a great way to be able to test out what you're doing, which is teaching. It's a great way to get feedback on everything that's going on. And it's also something that you can do at scale, right? Because a free event, all kinds of people love to share and promote. I'm a big advocate of using other people's audiences and leveraging them as much as you possibly can. And I'm also very anti-lead magnet, which is like a whole other thing in its story. And I'm sad and upset with myself for standing on that hill so damn hard, because it makes building my list more difficult. But that's okay. I'll take the challenge all day long. But anyhow, so live events are fun because it's almost a direct.
Yeah. I mean, my perspective on lead magnets is that they can be anything, right? It's just the idea of attracting people to you. So it doesn't have to be the download that I know you hate, but there's other things. I think the events are a lead magnet for you. It's just a different.
Yeah, they are. They definitely are. There's a different process that goes into them, and that's one of the reasons why I like them. So I'm a big believer in using content on the front end to teach what to do and why, and then to use courses, paid products, whatever, to coach and teach the how.
Because spell out in the implementation. Because I think that's
100%
from so many courses is they say, here's how you do it. And then you're like, cool, now I know how. Now it's time to do this, and I've got all these questions.
Exactly.
So I think that's so effective. It's insanely effective.
Yeah, events are fun because, selfishly too, like they just create a shit ton of hype. And I'm a big advocate of leaning into whatever channel's best for you, right? So I hate blogs, hate running them. People see great traffic with them. It's a good way to have a great evergreen assets living on your sites, right? Like, it's awesome stuff. I despise editing And because I despise editing, like as much as I can avoid it, I don't do written long form content. You know, the most stuff that I have is like transcripts that get sent into an email or to do anything else. I love speaking live. I love talking to people. I love engaging with an audience. In another life, I could probably dive into improv. Like that would be hella fun. But the way that I've been able to use it thus far is to be able to do two things. And first and foremost, it's the transfer of energy, right? Because if you look through any of my content, you'll see this. I'm a big believer in psychographics. I could tell you on a list of hands right now, 7 other people that you could go buy content around that teach you how to do anything email marketing focused, right? And likely what you're going to do is pick the person that you identify with the most, whether that be based on your business, whether that be based on what you think, believe, whether it be humor, whether it be pace, whether it be energy that comes out of it, right? You're going to choose the person that you align with the most. And so the best thing that you can do for really early subscribers, which is typically people who are new and signing up to your list, is show them who the hell you are as quick as possible and in as much depth as possible. And a 30-minute long event is an amazing way to do that. It's a good way to be able to flex any kind of like storytelling facets that you have, right? It's a really good way for people to get a taste of how you teach a concept. It's a really good way for people to get a good understanding of how transparent you can be when you ask and answer questions. And so it's this like 30-minute direct under the sun, rapid fire exposition into really like who you are, what the brand's about. And so like when it comes to info products, I'm never here to force anybody that doesn't like events into doing them. But if you can and are willing to, I don't think that there's any better way to pre-sell all of that.
I'm with you. And I was resistant to it at first because I was like, I don't know, what am I going to say? How many, all the things that are the wrong things to be stressing about, because the point is, even if 2 people show up, you're still gaining the practice. It's still a really good test balloon, so to speak. But yeah, that was the best launch I've had, was when I did the live event. So I think that's, particularly telling. But also, like, you were asking me like how this live has been working. And it started out as an opportunity to go live in a Facebook group. By the way, we are live in the Women's Entrepreneur Network right now, as well as my personal Facebook page, LinkedIn, obviously, and YouTube, which we're working on building subscribers. So, in terms of effectiveness, I don't know. There's people who listen sometimes, there's people who listen a lot. A lot of it's after the fact, and a lot of it's triggering those notifications that, look, we're live. But it gives me, and whoever's coming on with me, some additional content to share. So totally. Yeah, it's like, whether you have a blog, whether you're posting copies of your videos or whatever it is to your blog, it's just another place to get visible. And it is not, I don't think, in terms of the ROI, there's very little cost. It's, aside from the opportunity to go live, but I think the ROI is showing up and getting visible. And I have seen the traction growing significantly simply as a result of this. The other thing that it does is, everyone's talking about consistency. You talk about it with email. I talk about it with whatever you're doing. Figure out something that you can do that's sustainable. And it gives me content to share. Like, I only have to come up with content a couple of other days because I've got this. And there's either a recap or there's these other conversations that are going on. There's these life events. I just posted something else incidentally. But I think that's the true benefit. And then when it's me talking and it's me alone, I get to say, here's some tests that I want to do. Maybe I'm giving a talk and I want to kind of test it out, test the flow, see how the content and the stories are flowing. But like you said, it's just, it's just another way of getting out there. So I think it's a positive thing.
Well, and the nice thing about video too is it's the most repurposable asset that you can have, right? So if you've got a video, you've got audio content, you've got potential clips, you've got the transcript off of that you can chop into email, social posts, website, blog content, anything it is that you like. And then on top of that, you've also got multiple distribution avenues. So you look at YouTube, post live. If you do it live on Facebook, whatever, you get to take advantage of notifications. If you do it live on LinkedIn, potentially what you can do, even though the lives are there, is you can create an event around those, leading up to each and every one that you have invites and do whatever else too. I'm a big fan of them. I just asked selfishly because it's something that I've always been interested in. The live streaming portion is awesome. It can be a little bit difficult to set up, and I'm glad that it's like been generating some really good positive return for you too.
Yeah, and it's, there are ways that I can be making more of it, certainly with some scheduling. There's no scheduling with this software on LinkedIn, so I've got to look into that. But I think I just lost my train of thought. But yeah, and I think the benefit of live too is that it's totally unscripted. You can have a
Mhm.
script going into it if you're giving a conversation, but it is more about the organic flow of ideas. You're not stressing about editing it later. You're not stressing about getting it
Totally.
perfect. Because if you say something dumb or you forget what you're saying, it's like, oh well, we're live. We move on.
Yeah.
And I think that's the best way people can get to know you. Like you said, people buy from
Mhm.
people who resonate the most with them. There's no better way to get to know you than live.
Not in the slightest. That's why I love the podcast. Also, this is why this should totally be a podcast too.
We
Just
should do
cross
that.
post them.
Yeah.
Well, not even as like a separate episode. Like I'm just saying on your end, it'd be huge to be able to literally just take these, push the video download, pop them up into wherever hosting service you want to use, throw an ad on the front end to close out on the back end, and win, win, and win on your end too.
Let's talk about how easy that is in a little bit. Different
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah.
conversation.
Yeah, definitely. I'll show you how to do it.
But you have a hard stop coming up. So I want to make sure that we are telling people how to get you, how to find you, how to do all the things with Jacob.
Yeah, for sure. So the best place is always the newsletter. I said that I live and die on the hill of lead magnets. It means when you go to my site, there's no freebie sitting on top of there. The best freebie is all the content that comes outside of that. That gives you access to different kinds of templates that I share, video breakdowns, stuff I'm doing for my clients, anything that you can think of across the board. It's all about building an empire of diehard subscribers that can't wait to buy from you, right? What that looks like for your business, all kinds of different ways. Working with folks who are running newsletters in the financial space, high audience, high return, high investment, working with people all the way down to like, let's say, individual influencers who are showing people how to create and do other kinds of things and really cool, fun stuff, marketplaces. This stuff is universally applicable. The part that's underserved is content that shows people who don't already have a massive audience or a large ad spend budget, how to do this stuff organically in a way that's actually driving big return for them on the back end. So we walk through all of that. If you want to learn how to write sales emails, you want to learn how to use automations, if you want to learn how to put together your own kinds of events and do different fun, very outside of the box things to build your list, you want to learn how to collaborate with people all over the place, you can head over to emailempire.org and you'll get a quick pop-up. But if you want to go straight there, the easiest way is emailempire.org/newsletter. And then you get List Builder's Paradise first and foremost. I'm a daily emailer. I'm aggressive, but I've listened to all the feedback of others, and you'll only get content as often as you so desire. There's a quick prompt in the beginning, tell you how often you want to see it. You want to hear from me once a week? Awesome. 2 times a week? Perfect. The whole shebang? We got you covered.
Sweet. Well, there's so much more I want to unpack, but we are short on time. So let's continue this conversation soon. Yeah, like in the next couple months or so. So I'm excited to see how this builds. So thank you so much. I'm going to hit pause and let you go. And thank you for joining me today, Jacob. Always a good conversation.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.